Hey YouTube. We're going to start off with the tutorial. Elliott is going to give you his work on the card through handkerchief, as originally taught in Expert the Card Table. I'll let him do most of the talking, but one of the reasons why I wanted to share this with you is because there are very few people that I know of who have delved into that book as deeply and made it their own as I've watched Elliott do. So I hope that you guys get as much information from this tutorial as you can, and then we'll follow up with the interview.
Okay, so this is a routine that I developed and performed in my close-up act at the previously world-famous Magic Castle, and it is the card through handkerchief. It's been a pet effect of mine for a very long time. I dress like this, and I have a pocket square, so I do the card and handkerchief. If you don't know it, it's in this here book, which you probably never heard of. You could not find a more easily or readily available book on card magic if you tried, especially if you're looking in the magic community. Anyway, the card through handkerchief, it's fun, it's neat, it's cute. This is a seated routine, and the only really, I think, interesting addition that I have made is a display where you display the hand empty before the deck is put into it to effect the change. So it's pretty quick. There's no performance, but you'll just see how it looks. Now, there is a person seated here, and there is a person seated here. So on either side of you, this is a seated routine, as I said. And if you're using a previously selected card, this is a nice way to finish the routine. So let's just say that the King of Hearts has been selected. Okay, now this is your closer. You're going to take this card and insert it like you're going to do a diagonal palm shift, but you're actually going to rotate around so that you can steal this card out as you hand it to the person on your left. Hand the deck to the person on your left. Your right hand comes to rest at the table's edge, and you can very casually lap that card. This part was inspired by Jeremy Griffith. I knew I'd be seated at a table, and my best bud is known for lapping, so I thought I'd try some of that. So as this person is shuffling the deck of cards, you remove your pocket handkerchief and ask the person on right to examine it, make sure there's no holes. Try and make it meaningful, but we're just doing tricks, right? So they look at the handkerchief. You can talk about its provenance however you like. As you turn to focus on this person, your right hand goes into your lap so you can take hold of this card and back palm it. Look it up on YouTube, find any magic book, you'll be able to find a back palm. So your hand goes into back palm underneath the table's edge. Super simple, super easy. You're not really hiding anything. This person is shuffling the deck. You're looking at the pocket square, chatting, conversing. If you have an audience, good for you. Talk to them. You know, you're engaging. So after the handkerchief has been inspected, you are going to take one of the corners and drape it along your forearm. Now, what's nice about this is that the card is in back palm, but because you're coming up from underneath the table, just a quick glance, your hand looks empty. And because, again, the larger action is covering the smaller action, it's really, really clean. There's not anything that you have to hide from anyone. There's no heat on you because the deck isn't in your hands. You're talking about the silk content of your pocket square, whatever. So, this is the moment where you will put the deck into the hand to then wrap it up for the revelation. My addition, again, is that you can drape the front part of the handkerchief forward and you're covered from just about every angle with that card in back palm. Now, why do this other than to show people that your palm is empty? I do this because I want everyone at the table who is interacting with me to feel comfortable with the instructions. I don't want there to be a moment where somebody goes, "Oh God, I don't know what to do," because that creates tension. It's not positive tension for the effect, it's negative attention that detracts from the experience. So I want everyone to be comfortable. So what I do is I cover the palm with the handkerchief like this, and I say, in a moment I want you to set the cards into my hand, but I want you to place them lengthwise right on my palm, just like this. So now they understand how everything is set up, okay? Now, The purpose of flipping forward is that you are going to do a back palm replacement as you bring this handkerchief forward. Again, the large action is covering the small action, and I've actually placed the card from back palm back into palm. And that action looks just like this. The fingers come forward, the thumb grabs on top, and the fingers extend. It is very simple, very easy. If you can back palm a card, you can put it back onto your palm. Okay? So, again, we're at this position. We come to cover back up, and as we're doing that and adjusting, we're repositioning that card. Now, the card is in the palm. The deck comes to rest on the palm. And then you go just straight into the finish of the routine where you wrap the deck up, and now you are in the classic position for the revelation. You shake the card, and it comes through. So that's my little touch in addition to the card and handkerchief. Thank you very much for Jamie Griffith. And if you're interested, that little touch was first published in Ryan Plunkett's Distilled, which is a book that has 10 really great effects in it if you want to check that out. You can't pay for that kind of service, folks. That is really the best that you can get right there. Ryan Plunkett's Distilled, cards, the expert at the card table, and if you're interested, this is a pocket square from the brand 10 of Pentacles. It's X of Pentacles on Instagram. It's a black-owned brand, menswear, super cool stuff, made in Italy, really beautiful. Check that out. And yeah.
Now, the interview that you're about to watch with Elliott comes with a caveat. It was recorded just after the end of the second wave of COVID here in California, just as the state was starting to open back up again. And even though both he and I took every precaution that we thought was reasonable, we still thought that if we were going to be that close to each other for an extended period of time, that it would be prudent that we both wear masks. So if you have trouble hearing us, apologies for the inconvenience. Elliott and I have known each other for a little over half a decade.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh my God.
I can't remember how we met. So.
I mean, I stalked him for much longer. So he doesn't know that I knew him for so much longer. But
everything's falling into place now.
Finally. Yeah, all those weird footprints in your front yard. That's what
They were so small. I thought it was a children's.
so dainty. Anyway, we met through a couple of different avenues kind of all at once. So we met through the Magic convention scene, MagicCon and Magic Live. And then I got to be a part of his podcast, Magical Thinking.
Oh, that old thing?
Oh, that old thing, yeah. Which, that was a big work. It had seasons,
Didn't have seasons.
It did too.
Nope.
Yes, it did.
Nope. It came out once a week for 2.5 years.
That's seasons.
No, that's too long. That wasn't seasons. It was episodic. There were no seasons.
Don't make me come over there.
We're going to fight.
Yeah, we're going to fight. We're going to fight on camera.
Next video, one of us is going to have a black eye.
That's right. That's going to be angry. No, but you did the Magical Thinking podcast. You asked me to be on it somewhere early on. It was pretty early.
Yeah, you were approachable because I was so nervous at the beginning because of imposter syndrome, and I just sort of stumbled my way into hanging out with all of these amazing magicians, and you were one that I felt comfortable talking to.
Hey, you do Instagram. Let's do this.
No, I thought you were so interesting, and you had these great chops. But what really struck me and captured me was that you were so dedicated to building an uplifting and encouraging community on social media, when every other magician that I was talking to who was over the age of 35 was like, social media is killing magic. And I thought that your way was the future, and that was just so appealing to me, and I wanted to not only get to know you better, but why were you doing this? What was the reason? And
I'll put a link to that episode. It's a pretty severe bromance, but it was Basically, what from then on, that was, we were thick as thieves.
Yeah, and just an editorial note, that was early on in the podcast, so the sound quality's not great. Some of the editing may be a little rough, but the meat of it is that he's just the most lovely, wonderful person you'll ever get to meet and spend time with. So
stop it.
Enjoy that.
Just go on. It's for on camera.
Stop it.
Yeah. Keep
Stop.
going. Yeah, no more. Yeah, and then you kind of transition slowly into a more classical style of magic, but I think right around the same time you started to really focus on the fashion side of things. Is that fair to say?
Well, I transitioned to a more classical style of magic because it's really all I ever studied was sort of classic close-up card magic, and I'm not terribly creative, so I wasn't like coming up with a bunch of new things.
Yeah.
And I also am not like a big social media person, so it wasn't like, I didn't have constraints for what I wanted to do. So the constraints that I had were, well, you want to perform at the Magic Castle and you want to do the close-up room and there's a table, you should probably put together something like that. And so it was sort of classical by nature of the room and the venue. And it was just what I was comfortable with, and all of that having been said, obviously I was going to put my own spin on things and develop my own routining and methodology and stuff, but it's rooted very much in classical conjuring, close-up conjuring. And then as far as the fashion side of it, I had been interested in style, most particularly suits, for a very long time since I was a kid. I wore double-breasted suits to school. I wanted to be like David Letterman. So suits had always interested me, and I really started, as I got more and more disillusioned with like learning tricks, I wanted to figure out what real magic was, and that is connecting with people. Mm-hmm. And part of connecting with people is your body language and how you speak, and the way that you dress communicates something about who you are. And I wanted to be able to use that intentionally, rather than
kind of happenstance.
I wanted what I was presenting to be a coherent experience. And if I wasn't paying attention to what I was wearing, then there was a disconnect between, I'm trying to take conjuring very seriously, so I need to show respect by dressing seriously, not necessarily super formally or in a stodgy way, but I wanted people to understand that I was making an effort visually,
right,
and therefore thematically or whatever.
So as you worked your way more into the fashion side, I remember you worked for Suit Supply.
Yep.
For a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I feel like it was there that you kind of cut your teeth on the production side of things, outside of just the consumer side of things. I know that you already knew a lot about the materials used and everything, just in order to be an informed consumer.
Yeah.
But in terms of like how it was produced, who was producing it, where you could get it, like the balance between quality and price and all that fun stuff, is it safe to say you learned that at Suit Supply?
Yeah, I really got deep into suiting specific sartorial knowledge while I was at Suit Supply, but a lot of that was just by nature of being able to touch and feel different garments. Learning and studying was always self-driven, just like it was in magic. I was interested in learning and researching and, sort of data dumping what you could learn about menswear. But actually, the experience of putting other people into clothes was really important and transformative. And sort of the major moment that I come back to in my life, we had a conversation earlier. I can't remember anything. When I said I can't remember how we met, that's true.
That's
I don't
absolutely
remember.
True. Yeah.
I have a terrible, terrible long-term memory. And I think in images and colors, but I can't recall what happened. I can't play the tape back. But there's one experience specifically in my life that has to do with clothes. I was in Venice, Italy, and I was 17, 18, and I went to the Giorgio Armani store in Venice, and I walked in, and there was an older gentleman, maybe 50-ish years old, standing in the middle of the room, and there were these beautiful clothes everywhere. And he said, "Ciao," and he walked over. He looked at me, and he walked over to a rack, and he grabbed a shirt off the rack, and he walked over to me, and he put it in my hand, and then he pointed to the dressing room. And I walked into the dressing room, and I put it on, and it fit perfectly. And I was a kid. I couldn't afford the shirt. But that experience seared into my brain, and it was the most magical experience of my life, and honestly, a true transformation for me. And so when I was working at Suit Supply,
I feel like that's like Harry Potter walking into the wand store. Like that's really it's that time, like you get the perfect piece.
Yeah, I mean it's I would consider it to be a foundational moment of my adult life, and I was, unbeknownst to myself, I was having those experiences where I was giving other people that experience at Suit Supply. People would come in and go, I gotta do this thing, I gotta go to a wedding, you know. And I'd walk over to the rack and I'd grab something and they would put it on and they would fall in love and it would fit great and we would need to hem the pants and they would be out in 20 minutes with a suit and a shirt and shoes. And, you know, they needed something physical, but they also needed guidance and they needed somebody to connect with them and understand who they were and communicate that with them through their clothing. And I happened to be, again, unbeknownst to me, it was the first real job I ever had. I happened to be very good at that, and I was giving people that experience, and so it was pretty amazing. Like, I don't need a deck of cards to do a magic trick. You know?
Sure.
It's cool.
Well, and also that you studied hard on both ends, right? Yeah. I remember us talking about how hard you went at, you know, expert at the card table by Forces Unseen, all the magic side and everything. You dive deep.
Yeah.
And it was very, very focused. What was it like trying to balance two things? Because I know at one point they sat on equal pedestals for you. What was it like trying to balance two things? And do you feel like you ever had to like choose one or the other? Or do you feel like it just, you started to lean in more toward?
Well, I mean, as far as like interests and passions go, I don't feel like I ever had to choose one or the other.
Okay.
I have experienced burnout in magic specifically many times.
Okay.
And the magic community is so problematic and has been for a very long time that when I was running Art of Magic, I was getting burned out because the magic community is problematic and everyone is awful all the time.
Okay.
And so when I wasn't doing that anymore and I was working at Suit Supply, you know, I had the grind of going in and doing a job, but that felt new and different and fun and interesting, and it also got me away from all of the nonsense of the magic community because it's so like stupid.
Right.
And that was good. So I was never balancing the two things. It was, this is what is interesting to me right now.
Okay.
And this is what's not interesting to me right now. And what wasn't interesting to me was the magic community, magic politics, magic drama. And I was having much more interesting and frankly magical experiences outside of the magic community in the real world with real people that, you know, that became much more my focus. You know, as I said, I'm not a terribly creative person, so I was never really making my money by creating magic tricks or teaching people how to do things. So stepping away from all of the nonsense was really basically the same thing as stepping away from magic.
Okay.
You know, I never am not fiddling with a deck of cards. They're everywhere. They're not even in boxes, just on my coffee table.
I'm not kidding you. Yeah, pre-pandemic, I used to go over there and visit, and it was embarrassing. Like they're leveling his tables. They're in frying pans. It's a lot.
On my coffee table are 3 red decks of cards. They're all different, but they're all 3, and they're not in boxes. They're there, and they have different finishes and different thicknesses and whatever. And I'm fiddling always, constantly. But that is all that magic is to me now, is fiddling with cards because and occasionally, you know, doing tricks for people because the magic community is so problematic. It's so problematic. And what makes it so frustrating is that it's blind to its problems.
Okay.
And it is self-righteous in that it thinks it's better than it is. And the stalwarts of the magic community, the pillars, if you will, are fucking blind. And I just don't have the room for it anymore. There are people who say that they're trying to fix it from the inside. And historically, that has never worked, ever, in anything, ever. Again, I'll say ever again. That doesn't work. So I just was like, I'm out. But I love you.
Yeah, no, I know. It's the other way. You wouldn't be here if you didn't.
I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you guys. People that are the lifeblood and will make magic great again.
I've never gotten the sense from you that you ever lost a love for magic. I think it was all the extemporaneous things that were happening outside of it. People trying to own it, call it their own, and then gatekeep it.
Yeah.
People trying to say, this is what magic needs to be, and if you have a different opinion, you are not of us.
Yeah. Well, it just comes back to being open-minded. Like, if you're always trying to learn, if you're always trying to improve, if you always feel like there's something to be better at, that typically gets into your body in such a way that that's sort of how you live your life. And oftentimes you'll find magicians in particular, it's an amazing little microcosm. You'll find magicians in particular who have gotten reasonably good at something, and they think they're the best, and then they're not interested in anything else. And learning and growing and getting better. And those people are just awful. They're just shitty to be around, to converse with, to exchange ideas, share new information. They just aren't interested because they think they know the correct answer.
All the time. So bringing it back, now that you have
I never fell out of thank you. I never fell out of love with magic.
Yeah.
I just don't like most magicians because they're not interested in growing and getting better.
Would you say now, because now you have your own company, you have your own, it's not even a fashion line, it's like a curated couture.
I make made to measure suiting, shirting, and casual wear. Now, I've started a made to measure company. It's called Recant, and it is basically your personal clothier. Custom pocket squares and shirts, made to measure jeans, shirts, stretchy stuff, dress, casual, whatever. If you want a drawstring waistband chino with cargo pockets, I can do it. Right. But to me, it's about creating and crafting a story. It's about storytelling, which is where the connection between magic and clothing is for me, is that it's about sharing yourself authentically and communicating in such a way that not only does it express confidence, you are encouraging others to be confident in themselves.
That's something like if there's, yes, you've helped me in magic, but that was also a discussion that we had because I was wearing tennis shoes and jeans and sort of that was it, and
which is fine.
Yeah, but that was the thing, is like you brought that up to me. You're like, okay, what you wear expresses a certain message to the world. If that message is intentional, fine. But if it's not, maybe you should evaluate the message that you're sending and if you want to change it.
Yeah, it's about intentionality. I like to wear a suit. I wear a suit most days. If it's not a suit, it's a jacket and trouser. I just like that and it feels comfortable for me, but I don't put that on anyone. It goes back to that experience that I had in Italy. I was wearing like a graphic T-shirt that a 17-year-old kid from Louisiana would wear that said like, "Hi, my name is Stupid," or some stupid thing like that, and like shitty jeans and sneakers because I was on a school trip. I did not belong in that store, but he made me feel like I was the only man in the world. I am through with exclusivity. Just because something is maybe costs a lot of money doesn't mean that it should be exclusive by nature. It costs a lot of money because you're paying the people who made it a living wage. These people are craftsmen and artisans. The material is difficult to make and difficult to come by. There are reasons that you're paying a lot of money. It's not because of the brand name. It's not because of the label. It's not because of the hype. It's not because you have to be this cool to wear our stuff. It's because we believe in making something that lasts. And ultimately, you spend X amount of money that's maybe more than you're comfortable spending. But that thing is going to last you much longer, and you'll actually get cost per wear wise, much more value out of it because you invested in quality. It's not like you bought a Kanye t-shirt for $400 that's the same as the t-shirt you get at Kirkland's or Sam's Club.
Right.
It's made from something that matters. It's made from something that is tied to the earth and it has intrinsic value. And selfishly, it's an opportunity for me to practice seeing people for who they are. Because if I'm going to help you tell your story, I have to understand who you are, what you bring to the world,
right.
And I may not nail it the first time, but I'm going to try and we're going to get close. And if we continue to collaborate, we are building this relationship
right.
that I think is, again, selfishly, it feels good to me to get to know somebody and
you want to be the guy.
I want to be the guy.
You want to be the guy that hands the kid the t-shirt.
That's what I'm aiming for. Yeah. And the other thing too is that it feels good when you get to be the person that says, I've got a guy.
Yeah. And especially, like I joke as that, like, I collect savants.
Yeah.
I find people who love what it is that they do and then find a way to interact in their world, because what I found is there is that common thread. It's like sometimes people reduce it to obsession, and I don't think that's fair. I think even passion, has sort of taken on a connotation that it doesn't really need.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to wake up in the morning and be in love with it. I think it's just, there's this longing to express who it is that you are, and it's most easily expressed through that avenue. And so it fits.
Yeah.
It's like getting into a car that you already know how to drive, even though it's the first time you've been in it.
Yeah. It feels right.
Yeah.
It's sort of, you could get all sort of mystical with it, but if it feels familiar, it feels right, there's a reason for it,
Yeah.
Find the thing that you're good at that is also good to you,
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, yeah, that one's going in the tagline.
Because you can be good at something that doesn't want you, doesn't need you.
True.
But if you can find something that wants you and needs you and that you're good at and enjoy, then that's the thing.
Primo. Dude, thank you so much. For
Thank
all the
you.
time, for the investment, for the years.
Stop it.
It's meant the world to me.
You are just the most wonderful.
I will put a link that you guys can find his company and find his services. Also put links to some of the other works that he's been a part of, including his podcast. So you guys can sort of learn why that became so important to me. And thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just a note on the podcast. There's 80-something episodes. Most of them are pretty good. There will be more, but it's on hiatus. So if you've caught up, don't expect anything anytime soon.
Yeah. It's gonna take a little bit.
But it's not over. It's not done.
It is definitely worth catching up on, and I think if and when it does come back, it will be worth sticking around to watch how it changes. So
yeah.
Anyway, so that's me putting him on the line. Anyway.
And let's get into it.
Yeah. No, let's get into it. Thanks, dude. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this'll do.